Hi, I'm Sarah,
And I'm Tess.
and this is the Basically Bookish podcast.
Today, we thought it'd be fun to talk a little bit about Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros and what we anticipate to happen in the third installment of the Empyrean series.
Basically, we haven't finished the book yet, but we're experiencing FOMO and need to talk about it with someone, aka you.
This episode will contain spoilers for both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, but will not spoil Onyx Storm. So proceed at your own discretion.
If you find this episode to be entertaining or informative, please like, rate, review, and subscribe. It's a free way you can help support the pod.
So let's get into it. All right, what do we think Miss Rebecca Yarros is getting us into?
Did you see the video of her nephew, I think, reading it, crying? He just hates it. Yeah,
No.
he's crying at the end. And I think I saw a video of her niece reading it on a boat, and she's like in the back of the boat, just like leaning over and crying.
Oh no.
I know I'm nervous. I'm nervous for a couple reasons. Like we've said before, we know it's enemies to lovers. She's confirmed that. And she just fell in love with Xaden so quickly. There was hardly an enemies portion. She barely even knew who he was before she was already involved with him. So I get a little worried about that.
Yeah, we definitely have seen the theories that Dane Atos is the real enemies to lovers. And I'll defend some of Dane's actions, but I hope that's not the case.
He's kind of flat on the page, maybe intentionally, but I just feel like she's bringing Xaden to life so much more.
I agree. As we know, at the end of Iron Flame, some of the riders had left to go and help the resistance. And then they came back to Basgiath to help them defeat the Venom there. I'm curious to know how the dynamics between the riders, like the native Navarians, and then the Rebellion's riders, plus now we have the Griffin riders, how all of that is going to interact with each other. You know, after generations of being trained to distrust and hate each other, I don't know if they're going to be able to have this common enemy unite them.
Right. Yeah, I think there's been so much lying to the general public, maybe on both sides, within Poromil and within Basgaia. And so we just don't know how they're going to come together to fight a common enemy. I don't even think that they necessarily believe that they have a common enemy, because we know from the dragon Empyrean, the group that's over the dragons,
Right.
they have failed to act because they don't see the threat maybe as much.
Right. Or if maybe they don't agree with the threat.
Right.
There's just so much more information that we need. I feel like the first book, we're kind of in the Empire and we can't, we're starting to kind of peel back that onion. The second book, everything's just kind of exploded onto the page. We're getting propaganda, we're getting wyverns dropped at the border to prove the existence of these venom and everything like that. So I'm just very curious now that we've done so much world building. I feel like we can really get off to like a running start.
Right. One thing that you were talking about with the general propaganda throughout, I think one thing that I really want to hear more about is the burning ceremonies that they have after someone dies. They take everything that they have and they burn it. They write their name in the book, and that's the last time that anyone's allowed to speak about that person. I think that's a really interesting aspect to control. And I wonder if that's going to come out more as the book goes on, that there's something more sinister going on behind that.
I would definitely believe that.
Yeah.
I'm also very worried about Taryn.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is going to die in this book, but I do think that we have so much foreshadowing that he's going to die in this series.
So whenever there's two of something, you got to get worried,
Yeah.
whether it's a twin or a fallback or something like that. I also wanted to shout out to Kenny Boyle Official on Instagram. He went through and gave the English translations for all the Celtic names throughout the book. I think that Rebecca Yarros is heavy on the innuendo, and she uses a lot of words as literary devices to convey her story. And he told us what Andarna's name means, and it means the second honor, which I think also plays into what you were talking about.
Right. And also just the fact of Taryn stating to Violet that she's going to be his last writer.
Right.
We know that he's a lot older. We also have the foreshadowing of Andarna having kind of a maladapted wing to where she won't be able to carry a rider. I feel like there's going to be something that happens that Taryn will no longer be in the picture, and then Andarna trains and she's able to bear Violet's weight.
Yeah, you can tell she's prepping us for something. And also, one interesting thing is like not to be rude to Violet, but she can't really ride a dragon, right? I mean, she's had to be strapped onto Taryn the entire time. And so she hasn't had that experience of learning how to ride a dragon the way that, Liam rode Day or the way that Dane is riding Marb, where they've got this real acrobatic practice under their belt. We know that Taryn hasn't been allowing Violet to practice in that way because she can't. And so I wonder if ultimately there's a storyline about, Andarna and Violet matching in the way that they can't be the traditional dragon rider duo.
Right. That's interesting.
Because neither of them can really do it right now. Andarna can't support her weight, and Violet couldn't hang on if she wanted to.
Right. And I think that one of the big themes that we see in this book is obviously disability representation and overcoming physical adversities. So I think that that would be really on theme, and maybe they aren't like the stereotypical dragon rider dragon combo, but they're still very powerful.
Right. But poor Taryn. I can't.
I want to talk about Sawyer for a second. So, in the last battle, Sawyer lost his leg,
Mhm.
and we know that Sawyer can control metal.
Mhm.
So, I've seen a theory posited online. I know fantasy fangirls have brought this up. I'm not sure if they're the originators of this theory, but I love it. I want to see some sort of metal prosthetic that's like also magical for Sawyer. Like I'm thinking like the machine gun leg in
Yeah, like steampunk sort of.
yeah, well, more Tarantino
I see. Yeah.
with Rose
Magic.
McGowan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm wanting for him.
Machine gun leg. I love that. He'd be able to control it, right? Because it's made of metal. And so he'd be able to manipulate it.
Right.
I like that theory a lot. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that Zayden's going to get cured in this book.
I wonder if that's part of the story as well. We started out in Bezgaeth with the Griffin Riders being evil. And then now we've sort of learned more about that story. And we know that it's just a misunderstanding. They're not actually evil. They're not actually trying to attack Bezgaeth. And I'm wondering if there's something further to the story of the Venin, because they are fervently attacking and we haven't been given a reason why other than just like complete destruction. And so I wonder if there's more to the story. And something that Rebecca's using throughout the book is painting something one way, and then you learn more information and you see that it's actually painted a different way. I wonder if she's going to do that with the Venin, because we were led to believe that they're outright evil, and yet now our favorite character is one of them.
Right. And Violet still very much trusts him.
Right. Yeah, the relationship with the Venin is still really unknown. I could totally see it ending with like, they stole our thing. And then we
Right.
had to go and get it to further reference that Kenny Boyle official Instagram. So he gave all the dragon names as well as other Celtic names that are referenced in the book. And one of the dragon names that really confused me was Professor Carr's dragon translate to Little Lies. And Violet has very much trusted Professor Carr throughout the books. And so I'm really interested to see that and what that means. I just wonder if there's even more that Violet doesn't know because she constantly says that throughout the books.
Right.
Yeah, another one of the names that I got a little interested in was, we all know there's some theories about Liam. There have been since the first book, but Day's name translates to ice, whereas Liam's signet was Farsight. In the final battle where Liam dies, while he's fighting for his life, he is seen wielding ice into another dragon's neck, into a Venin's neck, actually. And that was not his signet. So I think that we already can kind of guess that all of the marked ones have a second signet. It's obvious, right? Because they're all marked. And that's what makes the signet is the mark, right? They've got the dragon signet and then the marked one signet. So I feel like it could be kind of obvious that they have a second signet.
Interesting.
And that's the big hidden thing, you know?
Speaking of second signets, any guesses at Violet's?
Yeah, it's so hard to guess at her second signet. So many people make guesses as to what it could be. I don't know. It's got to be something with Venin. What do you think?
I think she's also a type of intrinsic.
Mm.
I'm also on the internet, so I've listened to a lot of these theories, and this one makes the most sense to me. So Rebecca Yarros did tell us that it was on the page and it should be kind of obvious. If we think about Violet, like her biggest thing is like a need for information, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know exactly how this plays out, but there's been times where she can like see through other people's eyes. Like she can see, I think there's one battle that she's like seeing things unfold through Taryn's eyes.
Mm.
And then in the throne room scene, where they're exchanging that memory, we all kind of assume that that's because of Xaden, but I think that that's because she's also a type of intrinsic.
And the type would be like being able to see memories.
Or being able to see somebody's perspective
Right. And that's why it seems like it's Zayden's perspective because she's seeing it through.
through him.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Also, Brennan's dragon, Marb, it means death.
Right. So definitely with Brennan. So I get a little confused. One small critique that I have of the series is that I feel like we get introduced to a whole lot of characters really, really quickly, some of them fleetingly, but then they come up for another second very fleetingly. And then all of a sudden there's so many names to remember. And then it's like they're also referred to by their first name, their last name, and their station to where it's like, what the hell? Like, who is what? You know what I mean? There's
Right.
like anyway, but so Nolan is a healer. He's the healer at Basgiath that tends to Violet, right?
hmm
And then there's Naolin, who is the one who saved Brennan. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that's Brennan's like best friend that died.
I think that's his lover.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that's his like mate that died. But I don't think he died. I think he turned into a venom in order to save Brennan.
hmm
Because remember, the quote is it
Right,
cost him everything.
right.
And then Brennan has like that rune on his hand,
hmm
something about that.
Yeah.
What if Brennan, even if he doesn't realize it, is still communicating information to Naolin via this mark?
Yeah, because they've kind of alluded that maybe the Venom used to be human. They have like a human look to them.
Yeah, well, because they used to be pulling from the source, what makes you turn Brennan.
And so you think all of them are like that, even the general Venom or whatever?
Yeah, so I think that there's probably, I think it's like a progression, like Jack Barlow versus the Sages. There's times where Violet will be like, oh, they had the red ring around their eyes, but they didn't have like the fully distended veins and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that it's probably the more time you spend as a Venom and the more times you actually pull from the source, it gets worse and worse to where it just like starts to consume you more and more.
Yeah, like Violet's mom, like that night when she went a little too deep into whatever and her eyes turned red
Right.
and she's now gone back to normal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then they're like looking for a cure and things like that. So I do think
Wow.
that it is like a gradual progression sort of a thing. I definitely think that Nayland isn't dead, not to be confused with Nolan, which I did every time I read those characters, Nayland and Nolan.
Yeah.
I don't think he's dead. I think that he's Venom. And I think that he might even be like higher up. I also think that we're gonna at some point meet Zayden's mom
Ooh.
because the whole backstory with her was that she had like a marriage of obligation
Right.
essentially, and the stipulation was that she had to have an heir and then she could leave as soon as the heir was 10. And on his 10th birthday she just like pieced out of his life forever, which is so tragic. But if we never see her again and that's just his like sad backstory, I would be highly highly surprised.
Right. And so we don't think anything's happening with Violet's dad then. No secret comeback,
I
Violet.
think that his research is super important
Mm-hmm.
because he was looking into feather tails.
Mm.
And I think that the feather tails, I'm not sure if it's feather tails specifically or if it's this like seventh den that we've figured out that Dharma is
Mm-hmm.
part of.
Right.
But I do think that there's something to do with all of his research being around feather tails and then Violet bonding a feather tail who tells her specifically, I waited 600 years to hatch for you.
Right.
Like we're getting kind of this like these prophetic vibes in a way.
Right. I think that's why I have a hard time guessing what Violet's second signet is going to be because I wonder if it's even going to be something we've ever seen before.
Right. That's also true. Yeah. I definitely think that there's more to his death than we know as of now.
Right.
I don't think he just died of like a heartbreak over Brennan.
Right.
He was even possibly unalived by the higher ups to kind of keep what he knew from coming out. Again, like maybe all of his research was destroyed because that's all to be given to Malek.
Right. Yeah. See, I think there's really something about how they burn everything and never say their name again. That's a tool of control
It's definitely one way to erase history very quickly.
very quickly. And anything, secrets die with the people that keep them.
Right. We must read.
We must read. Our goal for this was to talk about what we're most excited for. And I think the thing that I'm most excited for is she is just churning out those books. We got the third one already, and I really appreciate that she does, and we don't have to wait years in between. I know that some might argue that the quality suffers, and also this is her first long series, but I'm just enjoying the ride right now.
Me too. I
Suspending judgment.
I don't want to pop your bubble. Um,
So bad.
no, but I've heard that she doesn't know when the next one's coming out, and it's kind of like a don't ask me situation that she's
That's what I
she's
get
been
for
like
saying nice
grinding
things.
herself into the stones, and she's like, number four's never coming.
Yeah, I am someone that does have all the George R. R. Martin books for A Song of Ice and Fire. And so this feels like record time. Anything shorter than 10 years feels quick. So
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get the next one quickly, but
a little abused Game of Thrones reader. Last
anything.
thing, yeah, I just thought I don't know what it means. So I just thought I wanted to bring it up. Solus, which is Varish's dragon that was killed, his name means light. All the other dragons mean something kind of bad. Like Dane's means battle, Marb is death, Professor Carr's little lies, and then Solus means light. I don't know, that one caught my attention. Like it's sticking out on the page to me. If all the names mean something dark and they kind of go with what the dragon does, why does Solus's mean light? Why would that dragon who brought nothing but darkness and sadness and decay and death, why would it mean light? It just feels like a rabbit hole. Maybe I am reading too much into the names, but I just feel like the first fantasy series for a novel writer, they might use those little tricks of the names. And so I like to read into them a little bit.
We'll just have to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm scared, but I'm excited and ready for the ride.
Yeah.
Have you started reading Onyx Storm yet? What do you think so far? Please be careful with spoilers in the comment section.
We'd love to feature emails from you in future episodes. Email us at basicallybookishpod@gmail.com and let us know what book or book series made you fall in love with reading. Or let us know any fun or nerdy bookish news you might want to share.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. We're a brand new podcast, and your review helps us out so much.
Thanks for spending part of your day with us. If you made it all the way to the end of this video on YouTube, leave us some sort of animal-themed emoji to confuse anyone who hasn't made it this far.
Join our book club by subscribing to the Basically Bookish Pod on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok under the same name. Until next time,
Happy
happy reading.
Then why is Solus's light?
Cat feeder.
Okay.